Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to Diplomatic Channel this week. I am Amarachi Ubani. The past few weeks have been one of the worst for two countries here in Africa. Fighting continues in the world's youngest country, South Sudan. President Salva Kiir believes his government is under attack from a section of the army loyal to his former vice president, Riek Machar. The president has succeeded in laying off the soldiers, but the fighting has not lessened. Neither has the takeover of major towns. On Sunday, the capital of its oil-rich unity state, Bentiu, fell to troops supporting Riek Machar, the former vice president. On Saturday, Mr. Machar said his forces were in control of Unity State, a very important one to the government because of its oil fields. The UN mission in South Sudan's base was attacked on Thursday, leaving 11 people dead. A similar attack is believed to have also occurred at another UN base, where several thousand armed youths are reported to have gathered. The government says it is trying to retake the town of Bor in Jonglei State. Now, as expected, evacuations have already begun taking place, but we'll be telling you more on that later. We can tell you, although the situation is not any better in the Central African Republic, Amnesty International says nearly 1,000 people, double the number estimated by the UN, have been killed in attacks. The violence stems from a Muslim-led coup in the predominantly Christian country. Some residents say the fighting is not about religion, but about discrimination. Much later on the program is my interview with the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Linda Thomas-Greenfield. She'll be discussing trouble spots on the continent. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. U.S. President Barack Obama has warned that South Sudan is on the precipice of war, referring to the recent violence in the country. The situation is indeed dire as foreigners are now being evacuated from the country. Our UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, has urged dialogue between the two sides, but with what is going on, it's clear that neither side is listening. The fighting has affected a lot of the stability gained in the past few months. Although it is peaceful in Juba, the capital, many fear the fighting will get worse, as has been proven in the last few days. Fighting has now spread from Juba to vital oil fields, and the government said a senior army commander had defected to former Vice President Machar's group of rebellious soldiers in the oil-producing Unity State. Riek Machar himself is believed to have escaped by boat to his rural village of Adok. The country has been in turmoil since President Salva Kiir accused Mr. Machar a week ago of attempting a coup. Mr. Machar's comments shortly after that confirm he is indeed behind the rebellion. On Saturday, he claimed his troops were in control of Unity State. Though it cannot be verified, it has taken control of some areas in Jonglei State, which the government is trying to retake. UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon said he was greatly concerned about the fighting, especially as UN troops have also come under attack. About 2,000 ethnic Nuer youths overran the UN base in Akobo on Thursday, killing 2 of the 43 Indian peacekeepers and fleeing with arms and ammunition.
It is important that this young, independent country, which is just 2 years old, must address all these political differences in an inclusive dialogue. I have spoken to President Salva Kiir recently, and I have issued my statement that they must address this issue. I am encouraged that President Salva Kiir expressed his willingness to engage in dialogue.
Mr. Ban has also called on both sides to hold talks no matter how difficult. The African Union, on the other hand, has urged for an immediate ceasefire, describing the killing of the peacekeepers as a war crime. Governments of other countries have already begun the evacuation of their nationals. While envoys from Nigeria head to the country to discuss a peaceful resolution to the crisis, at least 2 U.S. evacuation flights from South Sudan were fired on, causing some injuries. The aircraft were attacked on the way to Bor, which is occupied by forces loyal to Riek Machar. Meanwhile, thousands of South Sudanese continue to flock to UN compounds to seek refuge. The Deputy UN Peacekeeping Chief, Edmond Muller, said 35,000 civilians in 6 of the country's 10 states are sheltering at UN bases, with nearly 20,000 seeking refuge at the UN mission in Juba. The refugees, mainly from the Nuer tribe, claim they're being targeted by both soldiers and Dinka tribesmen. Now on to the Central African Republic, where one side is willing to talk things through. The country's President Michel Djotodia on Saturday renewed an offer of talks with the Christian anti-Balaka militia, saying that the country's survival depends on disarmament. He's urged both Muslim and Christian vigilantes to lay down their arms and discuss. There have been varying figures on the number of casualties so far, as some agencies say as it's Sunday, 30 people have died.
The team of Amnesty International researchers who returned from a fact-finding mission to Central African Republic on Thursday said they believe the death toll in recent attacks is at least twice as high as was previously reported. They said that in some Bangui neighborhoods, the anti-Balaka forces went door to door and killed approximately 60 Muslim men. The Red Cross had previously reported that around 460 people were killed in the violence. But Amnesty believes the true figure in Bangui to be much higher because many people chose to bury the dead themselves rather than take bodies to the Red Cross. Amnesty says despite the presence of French and African forces, civilians are still being killed on a daily basis. They say that more international troops are now urgently needed to stop the tit-for-tat killings. The conflict has driven hundreds of thousands of people from their homes, increasing humanitarian needs. Footage released by the World Food Programme on Friday showed food distribution to vulnerable displaced people in Bangui province. The WFP and its partners have distributed nearly 500 tons of food, including rice, split peas and oil, to over 118,000 people in Bangui so far.
The situation in Central African Republic has deteriorated sharply. There are more than 1.3 million people in urgent need. These people don't have food, they don't have water, sanitation is a problem, and WFP is responding in a timely manner.
Selaka rebels caught with weapons at an African Union checkpoint manned by Burundian soldiers were killed in Bangui on Friday when their grenade exploded. An attack on Bangui by Christian militia earlier this month sparked a wave of bloody reprisals by the Muslim Selaka fighters who seized power in March. Hundreds of people were killed in the violence, prompting France to send peacekeeping troops there. President Djotodia on Saturday renewed an offer of talks with the Christian anti-Balaka militia, saying the country's survival depends on disarmament.
And individuals who are before me, but you shall not be cowed. We will find them and bring justice.
As a Christian-dominated country's first president, Djotodia urged both Muslim fighters and the Christian vigilantes to lay down their arms after more people were killed in violence over the weekend. While the international community's concern grows, the European Union will decide next month on a joint operation in support of a French military intervention to stabilize the country. French President François Hollande said he was not asking for troops to undertake military actions, but there was need for a European operation working on specific tasks, which include protecting the airport, providing healthcare, help with sanitation, and humanitarian action. He told a news conference that several European countries had already offered help, and EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton would propose a range of options for a joint European mission to be decided in late January.
Now, when we come back after the break, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs informs on the situation in the Central African Republic. Just stay with us.
Fun, inspiration, and knowledge. That's what you get from readers, writers, publishers, and the entire book world. Get some interesting reviews, events, interviews, and latest updates from the book world. The channel's book club, inspiring you one page at a time.
In other stories in diplomatic circles, President Salva Kiir says South Sudanese troops are preparing to retake the town of Bor in the restive state of Jonglei, which had fallen to the rebels on Wednesday. A week of ethnic fighting has raised fears of civil war in the country, but UN humanitarian staff have described bloody scenes, including summary executions. The violence has been tied to former Vice President Riek Machar attempting a coup, which he denies. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has apologized to the families of those killed in an attack on a military hospital earlier this month. The group's military head, Qasim al-Rimi, said a fighter had disobeyed orders and targeted medics and patients during the raid on the defense ministry in Sana'a. 52 people were killed in the attack. Rimi acknowledged the mistake and guilt and offered to pay blood money. Finally, 75 vehicles have been sent by the Russian government to Syria to assist the international operation in destroying or removing chemical weapons. They will be used to help transport chemicals to the Mediterranean port from where they will be shipped abroad. Syria agreed to abandon its chemical arsenal to avert potential U.S. military action after a sarin attack in August. Welcome back. Now, a couple of weeks back, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, informed the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs of the fighting in the Central African Republic. I listened to her remarks on what she and her team are doing to ease the situation.
We're deeply concerned by the horrific violence across Central African Republic, particularly the increasingly sectarian nature of the attacks on civilians, as you described. We're working closely with the members of